She sells seashells by the seashore. 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 She sells seashells. Hello, viewer. Welcome to the one video per 3 months upload. How are you all doing? Fantastic. In the comment section below today, you're going to be typing different types of tongue twisters, whether it's Betty bought a bit of butter, or how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood. Yeah, you get the gist of it. Give me your country's best tongue twister. And if you win, you shall be rewarded with, let's say, generous 10 golden eagles. Right, background footage. What are we looking at today? We're looking at the rear end of the Carnarvon that is driven by Kath. And Kath is not your regular, basement-dwelling man-child. No, she's a basement-dwelling man-woman. They exist. Females in War Thunder. This might be the biggest anomaly of the year so far. Even bigger than Gaijin actually going around and fixing the damage models. Congratulations. So now that you're all distracted by the fact that a female plays this game and you'll have just developed a new crush, I'm going to just skip the gameplay, ignore the point where I go and rush B Suka, and I'm going to go straight through spawn pushing. Yes, our favorite part of the game. Why do we spawn push? Because we can. Why do we spawn push? Because German teams are blind like grandmas on bicycles, and because we can. Now, truth be told, I haven't played British tanks in a year, and I wasn't expecting much from them, but there's two things that I found very enjoyable about them. First of all, the close air support that once existed with RP3 rockets is still present, and the tanks are a very favourable matchmaker. Right, a lot of German vehicles you get to fight, a lot of down tiers, and whilst certain Russian tanks can be a pain to penetrate, you still have this fantastic AP shell that goes through, I think, like 218 millimeters. Going blind here from the top of my head, I don't know the penetration values. I just play the game. I don't have to know the penetration value. You shoot somewhere. If it pens, fine. If it doesn't, you'll shoot somewhere else the next time. You don't go for the definition of insanity. You never want to use the same shell on the same spot in a tank over and over again without having a successful penetration. The British tanks are, you can't really angle them, but overall they perform well. The turret rotation's there. You have that stabilizer, which makes the world of a difference. And my favorite part about it is, again, you're fighting predominantly German teams. At least in my experience for the past week, everything I've played against was majority German teams. And like I said, it's like grandmas on bicycles. Their situational awareness is barely existent. And whilst we are now sitting in their spawn, because, what else are you going to do? They have all these Ostwinds and all the other lollygagging Panzer 4 Ausführung 87, Now, just my quick 2 cents before I actually skip over this whole part, because, there's a lot of kills that still happen here, about 3 or 4 between me and Cav, but it's boring to watch. Spawn camping is the same every time you do it. You just sit there and you farm easy kills. People who have bad lineups, SPA spawning in at the end of the game. I just want to talk about the fix of this, because the fix last year introduced was that circle. In the old days of spawn camping, what we actually used to do, and this was hilarious, you have immunity when you spawn in, until you move or fire your gun. So what we would do is, we would sit behind the enemy spawn. When the tank spawns in, we would ram him, push him out of his initial position, which would cause the immunity to go away, and you could immediately get the kill in. Throughout these fixes that have happened, and I'm going to bet that another fix is going to be coming at some point in the next year, because, more and more players will complain about it. It's inevitable. If you're playing on that German team right now, if I was in that Waffenträger, with my 300 matches, I've just bought myself a new Tier 5 Premium, whatever the case might be, I'd be pissed. I'd be 100% pissed, because this is not fun and engaging gameplay. But unfortunately, this is the end game. This is how most matches end. You didn't do the capture points, you didn't do spawn protection early on, and you lost. The circle that we got, this, you cannot drive in the enemy spawn anymore, it's just delaying the inevitable. It's making the spawn camping process, which happens regardless, just harder to do. And it's, in some way, arguably painful for both parties involved, because matches take longer. That means less experience per hour on average, if we're looking efficiency stats-wise. And I think the solution for it is to bring a test arcade system into the play. When I say test arcade system, I mean the 3 spawns per player. So instead of having the spawn point system, which we currently have, which in my opinion is still fantastic, because, players that are experienced and know how the spawn points system works can just continuously spawn and spawn and spawn. I've had games with 10 spawns that I've had, which is ridiculous, but you can do that. And I'd love to see that thing tested out. There was an event that we had last year for the E100, which was a 5 versus 5, where 3 spawns were given to every player. And if they added that, implied a scaling system, so depending how big the map is, that depends on how many players you have in a game. Example, Fulda, a lot of players, Corellia, small amount of players. It kind of takes away the difference between skills of players, but their potential ability to do good in a game. Because a good player right now will rise because of the snowball effect that the spawn point system has, and a bad player will just crumble. If you don't have a lineup, you're out of the game. With 3 spawns, you're sort of making that a bit more friendly, and also more challenging for those of us who want to get a lot of kills per game, but now suddenly cannot afford to just lose over and over again. So, second match in place. This is going to be a solo game in the T44. We're playing on Corellia, one of my favorite maps in the game, and I know that this one, you either love it or you hate it. The map design itself is where I could agree with the hate part, with disliking the positioning of the capture points, maybe the open spawn positions where, within 30 seconds you're in firing distance of the enemy tanks. This is not really a map for slow tanks, and I know it doesn't look like it because you'd think small map, slow tank, but no, try not to play a T95 on a map like this because you'll eventually just get caught off guard, get flanked from 3 different positions, or frankly just get close air supported. The way I like to play this map is I'll take the eastern spawn, I'll take this small little ridge line that you go through, as we've just seen, and I end up essentially where the enemies are, the blind German grandma on a bike. This is what I'm talking about. These people should have to always expect that there's going to be a tank waiting for them. Tiger, unangled, is a dead tiger unless that shell magically bounces through the back of the tree. It's okay. It's okay. Fine. We'll just go through the frontal plate, get the gunner out, and then the Panther comes back. So the first guy that was passing by the area now realizes there is actually a danger zone. What do? I kill the tiger, and then I use his carcass as a form of barrier between me and the Panther, so the Panther can't get a shot of me. A second tiger's coming in. I'm now going 1 versus 2, which in theory means I'm dead, but the Panther's not angling, I've got a fast reload, I've got superb armor, I am doing my angling job, and the tiger is also not angling. I'm not going to say it, but German teams, you're playing like blind grandmas. Please, there's a brain in your head, you can use it. That Panther, that Tiger, they should have made minced meat out of me. Also, if you're having trouble shooting the T44, a couple of solid weak spots is overmatching the side, if slightly angled, going through the turret front, going through the commander cupola, and also shot trapping it. Those are 4 different methods to engage a T44. Another Tiger, another unangled Tiger is another dead Tiger. Write that down. And then we're in the spawn, and that means Wirbelwinds and Ostwinds and all of that goody free kills. Yeah, gimme some. I feel bad doing this, but I mean, I cannot resist. I mean, what are you going to do? Am I going to go out and wait for these Ostwinds to make 20 meters away? This is why this map is nice. Those players that don't know how to angle are then immediately double eliminated from the game. You get a double kill, and you can proceed. That's 7 kills in like 2.5 minutes. Thank you very much. I want to say that this tank has been my guilty pleasure because of the gun and the armor and the battle rating and the matchmaker it gets, which is very favorable. I could also argue that it's because German teams are pretty mediocre and most of the players are bad, but it's the camouflage. I genuinely like vehicles that have a unique looking camouflage, and I'm bored of that standard stock green camo that, Russian tanks get, and that stock beige camo that you get on a Tiger. I like seeing tanks that look a little bit different, whether it's, decals being put all over it or just some kind of creative design, but I like seeing that. But I think the guilty pleasure extends beyond just having one vehicle in your lineup, because if you just play with one tank, it gets boring after a while. You want to kind of mix it up. And whilst this lineup of 6.3 Russians has another vehicle with good camouflage, the IS-2 Mod 1944, I want to showcase that thing soon enough. The SPA is mediocre. I do have the Type 65, but even that thing isn't that, phenomenal compared to what you'd get in a German lineup like the Ostwind or a Wirbelwind. It's this plane right here. This is the P-63C5. It's a gift plane. a very rare one, and it's essentially the same variant that you find in the American tech tree. Now, the BR of plane like this is 4.0. It seems kind of odd. 4.0 plane and a 6.3 lineup with the potential of seeing 7.3 tanks. The word we're looking for is challenge. It's an all-rounded plane. It's a jack of all trades. 450 cals that can even penetrate a Panther. The turret can be penetrated with the 50 cals. You can set things on fire. It's great for strafing SPA. It's got a 37mm cannon, which is sufficient and fantastic for hunting down any kind of plane. It's got a good turn radius, 3 500-pound bombs, decent top speed, flap usage. And yeah, I mean, if you find yourself in a 1v1 with a superior plane, in this case, I'm engaging in A6M0, I'm dead. There's no way I can, turn with him or put him into a stall fight. I can try to run. I was trying to camp my airfield here, but I'm not going to make it there. His speed and performance at this altitude and a little bit of spray, and this was before the cannon buff, so I'm expecting that today this would be even less feasible, but it doesn't matter. I've done my damage, I've done my rill through, and I can now come back in a different aircraft. So the trick behind the background of flying a plane and up-tiering it is that you have to understand it. Let's say for a moment you're playing Germans at a BR of 6.7 or 7.0. You can use a BF1 on F4, even though that thing is 3.7. You can use gun pods on it, you can take a G2 Tropical. It doesn't matter. If you have good use of that plane, and if you can contribute to your team, that's fine by me. But it will start to be painful if you simply don't have high BR vehicles and you're trying to, push your luck. There's a lot of experienced pilots in these matchmakers, and a lot of them can be duelists. And when these duelists come into matches, your up-tiered planes are suddenly going to be very, very bad, and they're going to struggle. And I suggest you pay attention to who's in aircraft. Pay attention to the kill feed, because for me, when I see an experienced player on the enemy team that I recognize from either a squadron tag or or just the name pops up, and I've seen them in tournaments or I've seen them in matches alike, I'd be afraid. I'd be very afraid, because those people are going to make your day miserable. That's what they enjoy doing. That's what good players do. They make the game slightly less enjoyable for the rest of you because they're just simply that good. And my last kind of thing that attracts me to this BR is the LA series. And it's not that the plane itself is well-performing, a fantastic dueler, it's the bombs. And you get 2 100-kilogram bombs that you can use on most LA series. These bombs are useless. That will be your first thought. If you've ever played the game and you've touched a 100-kilogram bomb, you'll think, this is legit crap. What am I supposed to do with it? And I had the same opinion when I was doing the Green Doom grind back in December. By the way, the Green Doom is finished. Some people ask me, how's the account looking? The account is finished. The idea of that account was to create it, have it be free to play, and win a tournament. It took, I think, a month and 5 days to do it. I might return back to it with a different goal, with a different sort of achievement value, but at the moment I can't be bothered to grind. I don't find grinding that enjoyable. I just want to kind of play the game. And so it's kind of funny because that account grind, grind usually we don't associate with an enjoyable sort of term, but I like that grind because it was forcing me to learn, to relearn the new meta. If you understand, last year I was spending about 6 months intensively learning close air support, long distance rocket snipes, and I became good at that. Obviously then the change came in and I had to relearn, I had to reconfigure my mind in terms of how we're going to be playing the game. And it was a good thing that the Green Doom was an account that I ran through, because it gave me a bit more sort of value to the aspect of bombing. I was not a big fan of bombs before that, but nowadays I'm an absolute fanboy. So yeah, the 100-kilogram bombs are a challenge to use, but once you learn how to use them, they become so almost like addictive. I almost feel like if this plane had more than one option of those drops, that I'd enjoy it more. And there was even a time frame, ironically enough, that same tournament that I mentioned before, the E100, that I also ended up playing in arcade, and I was using the Levican series. And in arcade, obviously, you have the 2 bombs, but they drop separately, so you could get 2 kills per 1 spawn, and it was... even though it was arcade, and I'm not a huge fan of arcade, it was enjoyable to do nonetheless. So yeah, this is it for the video, more or less. This is how another classic game ending goes. This is where my team is now attempting to spawn camp. I'm in a plane. I'm spawn camping the enemy planes as they're spawning in. I'm about to completely, and I mean completely, butcher up this engagement with the A6M3. He was a very good pilot, and unluckily for me, I was very close to the enemy airfield, resulting in some damage to the engine. Altogether, the zeros are very, very dangerous opponents to go against, even in a plane like the LA with good flap control and whatnot. Yeah, a butchered up stall, and when you stall with a zero, you stall out of the map straight into the hangar. And the next time you're in the hangar and you're trying to play, let's say 6.3 Russians or anything below that includes a LA5 or an LA7, put it in there. And don't shy away from using those bombs. They're not going to really take too much away from your performance. They're not huge bombs, they're very small ones. And just practice. My suggestion is setting the delay timer to between 1 and 2 seconds and play with it. Chances are that within a couple of dozen drops, you'll get a kill. And then another one, and another one. And sooner or later, you'll be on top of the leaderboard, and somebody in your team is going to be DMing you, calling for hacks. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Also, streams are now going to be happening officially every Saturday and Sunday. Peace, and I'll catch you in the next one.